The culture of Belarus is the product of a millennium of development under the impact of a number of diverse factors. These include the physical environment, the ethnographic background of Belarusians, the paganism of the early settlers and the hosts, Byzantine Christianity as a link to the Orthodox religion and its literary tradition, the country's lack of natural borders, the flow of rivers toward both the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea, and the variety of religions in the region. An early Western influence on Belarusian culture was Magdeburg Law Charters that granted municipal self-rule and were based on the laws of German cities. These charters were granted in the 14th and 15th centuries by Grand Dukes and Kings to a number of cities, including Brest, Grodno, Slutsk, and Minsk. The tradition of self-government not only facilitated contacts with Western Europe but also nurtured self-reliance, entrepreneurship, and a sense of civic responsibility. In 1517–19 Franciscus Carina translated the Bible into the vernacular. Under the communist regime, Carina's work was vastly undervalued, but in independent Belarus he became an inspiration for the emerging national consciousness as much for his advocacy of the Belarusian language as for his humanistic ideas. For the 14th to the 17th centuries, when the ideas of humanism, the Renaissance, and the Reformation were alive in Western Europe, these ideas were debated in Belarus as well because of trade relations there and because of the enrollment of noblemen's and burghers' sons in Western universities. The Reformation and Counter-Reformation also contributed greatly to the flourishing of polemical writings as well as to the spread of printing houses and schools. During the 17th and 18th centuries, when Poland and Russia were making deep political and cultural inroads in Belarus by assimilating the nobility into the respective cultures, the rulers succeeded in associating Belarusian culture primarily with peasant ways, folklore, ethnic dress, and ethnic customs, with an overlay of Christianity. This was the point of departure for some national activists who attempted to attain statehood for the nation in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The development of Belarusian literature, spreading the idea of nationhood for the Belarusians, was epitomized by the literary works of Yanka Kupala and Yakub Kolas. The works of these poets, along with several other outstanding writers, became the classics of modern Belarusian literature by writing widely on rural themes and by modernizing the Belarusian literary language, which had been little used since the 16th century. Post-independence authors in the 1990s continued to use rural themes widely. Unlike literature's focus on rural life, other fields of culture, painting, sculpture, music, film, and theater, centered on urban reality, universal concerns, and universal values. Music. The first major musical composition by a Belarusian was the opera Faust by Antoni Radziwiłł. In the 17th century, Polish composer Stanislaw Moniuszko composed many operas and chamber music pieces while living in Minsk. During his stay, he worked with Belarusian poet Vincent Dunn and Marcinkiewicz and created the opera Syalianka. At the end of the 19th century, major Belarusian cities formed their own opera and ballet companies. The ballet Nightingale by M. Kroshna was composed during the Soviet era. After the Great Patriotic War, the music focused on the hardships of the Belarusian people or on those who took up arms in defense of the homeland. This was the time period that Anatoly Bogatyrov, the creator of the opera in Polish A Virgin Forest, served as the tutor of Belarusian composers. The National Academic Theatre of Ballet in Minsk was awarded the Prix Benoit de la Danse in 1996 as the top ballet company in the world. Popular Soviet Belarusian music was composed by several prominent bands, many of whom performed Belarusian folk music. Folk rock act Pesniri, formed in 1969 by guitarist Vladimir Mulyavin, became the most popular folk band of the Soviet Union, and often toured over Europe. Pesniri's example inspired Siberia and Verazzi to follow the way. The tradition of Belarus as a center of folk and folk rock music is continued today by Stary Olsa, Vicious Crusade and God's Tower, among others. Rock music of Belarus arose in perestroika times. Bands like By2, Iapostropetskoy, Krama and ULIS were founded in the late 1980s or early 1990s. Though rock music has risen in popularity in recent years, the Belarusian government has suppressed the development of popular music through various legal and economic mechanisms. Because of these restrictions, many Belarusian bands prefer to sign up to Russian labels and to perform in Russia or Ukraine. Researchers Maya Medic and Lemas Lavis reported in 2006 that independent music making in Belarus today is an increasingly difficult and risky enterprise, and that the Belarusian government puts pressure on unofficial musicians, including banning from official media and imposing severe restrictions on live performance. In a video interview on freemasa.org, the two authors explain the mechanisms of censorship in Belarus. Since 2004, Belarus has been sending artists to the Eurovision Song Contest. Dress. The traditional two-piece Belarusian dress originated from the time of Kievan Rus and continues to be worn today at special functions. Due to the cool climate of Belarus, the clothes were made out of fabrics that provide closed covering and warmth. They were designed with either many threads of different colors woven together or adorned with symbolic ornaments. Belarusian nobles usually had the fabrics imported and chose the colors of red, blue or green. Males wore a shirt and trousers adorned with a belt, and the females wore a longer shirt, a wrap-around skirt called a panyova, and a headscarf. The outfits were also influenced by the dress worn by Poles, Lithuanians, Latvians and other European nations, and have changed over time due to improvements in the techniques used to make clothing. Embroidery plays an important role in Belarusian traditions. World Heritage Sites. Belarus has 4 World Heritage Sites, with 2 of them being shared between Belarus and its neighboring countries. The 4 are the Mir Castle Complex, the Nezvizh Castle, the Bielowieża Forest, and the Struve Geodetic Arc. Theatre. Belarusian theatre also began to gain popularity in the early 1900s. One of Belarus's most famous plays, Palinka, was performed in Siberia for the Belarusians who were being sent to the region. Documentation of Belarusian folk music stretches back to at least the 15th century. Prior to that, skomaroks were the major profession for musicians. A pneumatic chant, called znameni, from the word znamena, meaning sign or noim, was used until the 16th century in Orthodox church music, followed by 200s of stylistic innovation that drew on the Renaissance and Protestant Reformation. In the 17th century, partesnopeni, part singing, became common for choruses, followed by private theaters established in cities like Minsk and Vitebsk. Popular music groups that came from Belarus include Pesniri, Dreamline and NRM. Currently, there are 27 professional theater groups touring in Belarus, 70 orchestras, and 15 agencies that focus on promoting concerts. In 2005, playwrights Nikolai Karlasin and Natal Ukoliada founded the Belarus Free Theatre, an underground theatre project dedicated to resisting pressure and censorship by government of Belarus. The group performs in private apartments and and at least one such performance was broken up by special forces of the Belarusian police. The Belarus Free Theatre has attracted the support of notable Western writers such as Tom Stoppard, Edward Bond, Václav Havel, Arthur Kopiut and Harold Pinter. Russian impact. After the partitions of Poland, the Imperial Russia had a policy of depolonization of the Ruthenians. However, even after many cases when the Belarusian peoples were subjected to what some call Russification, it was clear that this created a distinct ethnicity and a distinct culture that was neither Polish nor Russian. In 1897 census, most of the population referred to the language as Belarusian rather than Ruthenians, as they did during Polish rule. It was the 20th century that fully allowed Belarus to show its culture to the world. Notable Belarusian poets and writers included Yanka Kupala, Maxim Bogdanovich, Vasil Bykor, and Vladimir Karatkievich. Also helped was the Korenizatsiya policy of the Soviet Union, which encouraged local-level nationalism. The Belarusian language was numerously reformed to fully represent the phonetics of a modern speaker. However, some contemporary nationalists find that the Russian influence has taken its toll too much. At present, the Russian language is being used in official business and in other sections of Belarusian society. Festivals. The Belarusian government sponsors many annual cultural festivals: Slaviansky Bazaar in Vitebsk, Minsk Spring, Slavonic theatrical meetings, International Jazz Festival, National Harvesting Festival, Arts for Children and Youth, Competition of Youth Variety Show, Arts, Muses of Nezvizhmir Castle, and the National Festival of the Belarusian Song and Poetry. These events showcase talented Belarusian performers, whether it is in music, art, poetry, dance or theater. At these festivals, various prizes named after Soviet and Belarusian heroes are awarded for excellence in music or art. The contemporary nationalists argue that most of these sponsored events have nothing to do with the Belarusian culture, let alone the culture as such. However, all the events are subject to the expertise of the Belarusian Ministry of Culture. Several state holidays, like Independence Day or Victory Day, draw big crowds and include various displays such as fireworks and military parades. Most of the festivals take place in Vitebsk, Minsk. Sport. From the 1952 Helsinki Games until the end of the Soviet era, Belarus competed in the Olympic Games as part of the Soviet Olympic squad. During the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona, Belarus competed as part of the unified team. The nation's athletes competed in an Olympic Games as Belarusians for the first time during the 1994 Lillehammer Games. Belarus has won a total of 52 Olympic medals, 6 gold, 17 silver and 29 bronze. Belarus's National Olympic Committee has been headed by President Lukashenko since 1997. He is the only head of state in the world to hold this position, receiving heavy sponsorship from the president himself. Ice hockey is the nation's most popular sport. The men's national team finished a surprising fourth in overall competition at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics. Belarusian players have also played in the National Hockey League in North America.